and get some calls.
Hey everyone, Halloween videos are finally here. Let's kick it off with a two-parter. This video is inspired by the baby-faced killer in the movie Happy Death Day, not sponsored obviously, and I show you two ways to recreate his mask, through makeup and making your own mask. And I will put timestamps in the description below if you want to jump to one in particular. Let's get to it. Since this is primarily a makeup channel, let's start with that version. And to start that, I have to block out my eyebrows. I have found a method that I liked that didn't leave my eyebrows with big chunks of glue like usual, which is working an Elmer's glue stick with a brush and some water, and brushing the mix on my eyebrows and smoothing it out with my finger. Blocking the brows this way does take a while to dry, so between layers I outlined the design. I sketched out a quick guide, hopefully to hide my features, and then I'm putting that guide on my face. This is hoping to align some of the features that I really can't hide, that are naturally dark and prominent, like the lines of my eyes and mouth when they're closed. Hiding as much of my eyeline with the top of the baby eye and hiding my mouth in the dark of the smile. I use my own nose shape somewhat and outline the big cheeks. And I am bringing everything down onto my face, like the eyes and the top of the forehead, since the mask in the movie is very square and my face is not. I'm using my hoodie to the advantage of this to cut off the top of my head. I powdered my brows after I'd done a couple layers between filling in some of the design, and I decided it was still too prominent, so I added another layer of glue. Now again, filling in the skin of the mask with some foundation. This was NYX Stay Matte but not flat, but any foundation you should have is good. Then, using a cream contour set from Kiss New York, I am starting to deepen some of the features. The advantage of the cream is it's super easy to blend out and wipe away if you stuff up. I deepened the crease of my new eyes, the voluminous chubby cheeks, my chin, my lips, and around the edge of my face. And then I fill in my mouth with black. Now I am using the pink in the cream palette and some Ben Nye Clown White to highlight and add some pinkness to the face. Lips and cheeks and nose mostly. I rubbed away the cheeks since they were too high, and I'm going back in with the deep brown cream to define them again. And a quick pizza dinner break. For the eyes, I blacken under the top lid to define it and hide some of my natural lid and eyelashes, and I'm using Mehron Black Paradise paint for this. Then I fill in the white of the eye with Paradise paint in white. These paints are both pretty opaque, so you can go over mistakes. I recommend closing your eyes and taking photos to check the design is working. The design will change depending on how forcefully you close your eyes and where you move your cheeks, blah 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 blah. I fill the irises with light blue from Mehron as well, and then fill the pupil with black. You may want a second coat of white in some areas, as it may have mixed with the black to make up a little bit of a grey, and you can also use it to tidy up the iris. I also filled the teeth with white. I defined the nose with cream contour, bringing the edges of my nostrils down and outline the bridge of the nose basically right on the tip of my nose. And then I outlined the new smaller, rounder tip. And for some reason, I also added these lines extending from the bridge of my nose. I think I saw them in the mask, but I can't really see them now, so anyway. I also deepen and define under my eyelids, and then I'm using NYX's No Filter finishing powder to set all the cream. Now I'm taking Black Onyx from Mehron and I shade blow the top of the mouth onto the tooth. I mix this black with the browns from the NYX Pro Highlight and Contour palette to deepen the other features where needed. Nose, cheeks, etc. Then I outline the mask in black and fill in my face and neck. I did this patchily mostly because I'm lazy. Using that black eyeshadow again, I shade under the eyelid, and again mix this with brown for under the eye bags. Now the baby mask has this tiny detail of eyeliner. Trust me, I didn't see it for ages either. I added a little eyeliner on the outer part of the eye and add these 3 little lashes and try to make them small and close together. Then I am adding Wineberry blush from Mehron and using the white and pink mix again to highlight the center of my cheeks. I used NYX's white liquid liner to add the shine dot in the eye of the mask, and add a little more cream highlight to the chin, nose, lip, high ridge things, and forehead and eyelids. And then I had my hoodie, and that's the makeup done. Now, this is not the best method to make this kind of mask. You can see it's a little bumpy in the intro, but I'll tell you how I did it anyway. It's kind of like a horror mask. think the bumpiness is acceptable. Maybe just cover the mask in a lot of blood splatter, it'll be fine. First, I started with a face cast to make a clay build-up. You don't need a face cast for this, you can use a dollar store mask or a head form or even a flat table with your features outlined so you know that the eyes will allow you to see and the nose and mouth will allow you to breathe. If you're using a mask, I'd recommend building up the shape with maybe newspaper and cotton and tape, since most undrying clays like plasticine I have here will take a little bit of effort to move and you may just collapse the mask. When I build up the basic shape and semi-smooth it, I outline where I think the eyes should be while looking at some reference photos. I also scrape away the excess clay from around the eyes and the mouth, and I'm using a looped piece of wire in paddle pop sticks for this. Or I suppose tongue depressors for an international name. You don't need any fancy pants sculpting tools, you can pretty much get away with basics, but they would probably make this easier. And then I build the cheeks more as this camera slowly starts to drop down. I stopped here, but I would recommend taking a photo of the sculpt now and checking it's proportional to reference photos. I did this later down the track and realised that the chin was way too small. Now I am paper macheing without paper using tissues and PVA glue. I pull apart some double ply tissues to get the single sheets for this. You could also use toilet paper or newspaper for this if you like. Straight PVA glue will dry faster than a PVA glue and water mix. I only did a couple of coats for this since I was rushing because I wanted to do it that night, but I ended up doing it several days down the track because it was just not strong enough. I pulled this piece off now since the next steps will make it more prone to cracking if it needs to flex this much. Plus this shows you where you need to fill in more with tissue and glue. Be gentle, it's not the strongest. Well, for mine you need 2 layers, it isn't. Now, to fill out and smooth away the messy wrinkles of the tissue texture, I add a layer of tile grout. You could use other things like builder's bog, spack filler or plaster, maybe plaster mixed with PVA glue, but I found this to be semi-flexible, strong, and very easy to sand. When it's only just set, you can run your finger over it to smooth out any strokes, basically using your finger as sandpaper here. When it's fully dry, you can use actual sandpaper, and then cover it in PVA glue once you're happy with the features and smoothness, so the grout is sealed in and it won't crack and flake when you bend the mask. This is actually how I made my unicorn skull from earlier this year. As you can see here, it's way more sturdy though, and that's because I used much more PVA and glue build-up, but it is still quite flexible. To try and get the strength I was lacking, I attempted to build up latex and cotton on the inside, thinking it would force it into the same shape, but it didn't really work, so don't do that. I ended up adhering it to a dollar store mask so that it wouldn't flex when I tried to attach it to my face and bend out of shape. I did end up cutting the eyes out of this mask and cutting nose holes and a mouth hole, by the way. If I were to do this again, I would either build this directly on this mask or potentially cast the clay sculpt and fill it with latex or spray foam or an air dry clay and press it into the mask to support it. I think it's probably okay to use spray foam since it's not actually directly contacting with your skin. I don't know. Here I had to build up the edges with masking tape and fill it with more grout. While the grout dries, I needed to make the eyes with some clear plastic, so I'm outlining the shape that I want, cutting it out on 2 pieces of plastic so that it is identical. I do outline the pupil shapes on these plastics so I can just look at it on the mask and know exactly what the mask is going to look like with the eyes. Now I am adhering these with hot glue, barely in frame, onto the pantyhose fabric from the legs of the set that I used to make the mermaid wig in my last tutorial. You can see through this pretty well. The shine of the plastic and the darkness behind the plastic will mean no one will be able to see your real eyes. I hot glue these to the mask and then use the hot glue to kind of build up some eyelids pretty quickly, and then I use grout to go over this to properly make them smooth and to merge them into the rest of the mask. Using a brush can be easier than your fingers for some of the parts like around the nose, and if you wet the brush you can also make things much smoother. Now I'm sanding down the mask to try and get it as smooth as possible, but sanding divots is really hard, so I mostly gave up, which is why I recommend the casting. And I fill the mouth with black acrylic. And then I fill the rest of the face with skin tones, pinker in the areas I had pinker in the makeup tutorial, and lighter and darker likewise. Then I cover everything in a layer of PVA glue to add some shine and partially fill in some of the divots, and when it's dry you can add more paint, which will slightly cover up the motley texture, but with this build up and not sanding it for hours, you're gonna have divots. It's just gonna happen. I fill the eyes with blue for the iris and white for the eyes, and leave the middle plain so you can still see through it. I did need a couple coats here for no streakiness. I also added the eyeliner thing to this mask too while waiting between layers for the eyes. And I am using a fake plastic nail for the tooth and hot gluing it with great difficulty in the mask. Then I added white highlights to the eyes, and I also added this white to the tooth since it was too shiny and the acrylic is more matte. And that's it. The mask is done. Go be a cream. This is honestly one of the easiest costume-wise Halloween tutorials. All you need is like a black hoodie and pants. It'll be great for you northern folk, though not for us as it's hot as balls in Australia. Please type "thank you Famello" in the comments to thank my lovely boyfie for putting up with me when we were both grumpy, hot and tired. Though admittedly he had it way worse off. Even in the shitty intro you saw, it was really hard to do and we ended up spending almost like 3 hours filming it. It was a learning experience, even if it was kind of torturing my boyfriend. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed this and all my upcoming Halloween tutorials. I'm aiming for 13 this month, so stick around, subscribe, hit the notification bell to know exactly when these videos go live, and I love you all, and stay classy peeps.
It's refreshing. Refreshing, you don't want to kick with the nuts. I wonder how long that can take. No, you're 5'4". I'm not 5'4", I'm 5'5". Oh yeah, 5'5". Such a difference. You pissed. Oh, you pissed. Yeah, I'm gonna drown you in that. Your head's at the bottom. I know.